Before we get today's video started, be sure to hit that subscribe button here for Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. It's your one-stop shop for everything Crimson Tide football news all season long, and the best part about it, it's absolutely free. So stay in the know more than your friends on Alabama football all season long. All you got to do is hit that big red button and subscribe. Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, RC Maxfield, and as we inch ever so closer to kickoff against the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday down in Atlanta. And before we jump into the three keys of the game for Week 1 for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I want to hear you predict the score. Predict the score between the number one team in the country, your Alabama Crimson Tide, against the Miami Hurricanes, the number 14 team in the country. I'll get my predictions later on in the week, but I want to hear yours right now today on this video, so let me know down in the comments below. First key I got to the game is the secondary and the O-line have to come play early, and the reason I specify with these two is because there's not a lot of experience in the secondary on the O-line outside of maybe two or three players. And the guy that I'll be watching most in the secondary in game number 1 against the Hurricanes has got to be Armour Davis, as Jalen Armour Davis is one of those players where the talent's obviously there, right? He's playing at Alabama, but he hasn't played much in his first 2 years in Tuscaloosa. He's looking to replace Patrick Surtain, a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and has the inside track to be that opposite of Josh Jobe. And earlier this week, they released the depth chart for Week 1, and he was indeed the DB opposite of Jobe, but not sure how much that's going to be an or-type situation, but really like what he brings to the table. The bad part about it is he hasn't gotten to play much. I think with reps and in-game, he will prove himself, but I'm interested to see what he looks like early on against D'Eriq King and the Hurricanes. The other guy I'm looking forward to watching is what really the stalwart of the offensive line for Alabama. That's Evan Neal, arguably the best offensive lineman in the country. Yeah, he did allow 1.5 sacks last year in 13 games, but really overall, when you look at what he did, I mean, he's one of the best offensive linemen in the country and will help alleviate some of those early pressures that new guys will have on the offensive line for the Crimson Tide in Week 1 and moving forward. I think he's one of those building block type guys for Alabama. As we all know, again, Alabama is just a house in terms of just creating all of these great elite offensive linemen for the NFL. Evan Neal is the next guy for that. But really, again, this comes down to early success for the secondary in the offensive line for the Crimson Tide against Miami down in Atlanta, because when you think about what this team needs to prove, the defensive line's going to be there. The rushing the passer is going to be there. It's just, can the secondary hold up on the plays that they're not? And can the offensive line protect newly named starter Bryce Young? It's going to be interesting to see, but who will it be? Who will lead the Crimson Tides in INTs this year? We're talking about the secondary. I think Josh Jobe has the potential to do it. I think Jordan Battle has the potential to do it, and that's actually where I'm going to place my money, is Jordan Battle. I think Jordan Battle will be one of the best safeties in America, and I do think that he will end up leading the Crimson Tide in INTs this season. If you want to put some money down on Jordan Battle leading the Crimson Tide in INTs, BetUS is the place to do it, as all you got to do is go to chatsports.com/TideBet and use the promo code TIDE125 to get a 125% deposit bonus. Listen, you don't need to go search anywhere else on the internet. This is the best place to get the best price for a deposit bonus. Let's say you put down $100, you get $125 back, and you have $225 to play with on the site all season long to bet on your Crimson Tide. All you got to do, again, is go to chatsports.com/TideBet and use the promo code TIDE125 to get your 125% deposit bonus. Next key to the game, is Bryce Young going to live up to the hype early often? I mean, that's really what it comes down to for Bryce Young, in the sense that we know what he is. He's the number 2 ranked player in the composite format from 247. Right? This is a guy that has a ton of hype from Mater Dei out in California. Didn't get as much reps as he wanted to as a freshman, at least according to Nick Saban. But overall, we know what he brings to the table in terms of athleticism and football IQ. He's just got to prove it on the field. And when it comes down to Bryce Young, I think that the inexperience is not going to be an excuse when it's all said and done. Right? when you think about Nick Saban, he wants guys to produce right away. Mac Jones, perfect example in terms of you get 1 year to do this and you're off, right? Bryce Young is going to be that guy for Alabama all year long, and I think he could be potentially in the Heisman race when it is all said and done for the Crimson Tide, but it all starts against Miami, and he has to come out of the gates firing and proving that he's worthy of QB1 for the Crimson Tide. Tell me what Bryce Young's stat line will look like against the number 14 Miami Hurricanes. For me, I think it'll be interesting. I think the first drive or two will tell a lot, but I'm really high on Bryce Young. I think he will be one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year. So my stat line for the first-year starter will be 27 of 33, 289 passing yards, and 3 total TDs. I think he gets one in on the ground, and he leads Alabama to probably a dominant victory over the number 14 Hurricanes. And speaking of the number 14 Hurricanes, I think containing Miami's quarterback, D'Eriq King, will be really what this game comes down to. He's coming off an ACL injury late last season, but he's back at 100%. At least he says he's at 100%. And this could be big for the Hurricanes. D'Eriq King is one of the most electric players in all of college football. As I mentioned, he did tear his ACL late in 2020, but he's viewed as one of the best dual-threat QBs. And really what this comes down to for Alabama is, can you make him a passer? Because if D'Eriq King can use his legs, it's going to change the whole entire complexity of this game, right? He's one of those guys where he can dual-threat you, go out, roll out, and throw 50 yards down the field and have an open receiver and extend those plays. Now, the Alabama secondary, as I mentioned previously, is one of the question marks on this team right now in terms of the inexperience there. Maybe a guy like D'Eriq King, who has been in college quite a long time, started down in Houston with the Cougars, now is in Miami and their starting quarterback. Maybe he can take advantage of that. But again, if you make him a passer and you take away his legs, I think Alabama has a great chance at really just neglecting and really just making it impossible for the Hurricanes to move the ball down the field. What is the biggest key to an Alabama win for, well, the Crimson Tide against the number 14 Miami Hurricanes? You let me know down in the comments. I gave you my 3 keys to the game. I think there's a couple more I probably left off. It is week 1. There's a lot of question marks on this football team, but the talent's there. It's just the inexperience factor when you lose so many guys to the NFL. So we'll recap my 3 keys to the game, but let me know down in the comments. So secondary and O-line coming to play early is huge for me because I think those are 2 of the biggest question marks positionally on this roster. Bryce Young living up to the hype, I think he does, but I want to see it early and often from the first-year starter for the Crimson Tide. And if you can contain the Hurricanes' D'Eriq King and keep him in the pocket and make him a passer and eliminate his running ability, you have a phenomenal chance at blowing out the number 14 team in the country.